They don't give away this secret family sauce. It'll be super packaged. We'll just slide. Go over that list of I may leave that to the other stuff that you sent me. And then,
how long did you last? 30 minutes?
and it's only been one, and it was a teaser, and it wasn't probably long. So, yeah, like 30 minutes. But, you guys have any questions?
No, not really. I might just review those questions real quick.
So, the first, like, half are really like big picture things about your industry and stuff. And then the second half are more like the little things that you use every day. So, if you ever look at like careers,
Not really bad. I don't like that.
Yeah. So it's just like, if you've got like a pen, mold, certain like electronic or something, or maybe a podcast or a book, and we've got the book in there, which is also I'll look at book.
Which book?
Shoot Up.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of the first several questions are all like big things, and the next ones are all about the little things that help you get there. So if that makes sense. Anything you can do with it if you're doing, you want to talk about?
Some of the stuff we're working on work is pretty cool. I'm not like doing anything in particular, just like 2 or 3 things. So,
We can probably hit the first one.
yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. So, like, we obviously just have, a point of view in this stuff. So, what you did, how's your weekend? Good.
As long as I got a leave after school, so
What's up?
I'll be walking out. Before we got lunch.
Oh, okay.
What's the balloon festival? No. So the balloon globe is on Friday night, and then they had a race thing that I missed, but it resulted in a passing vlog. This cat, she was shooting a video for a friend of hers, and so she kind of documented that. She decided to take on that project voluntarily to help out a friend, and I was like, oh, I mean, I've got a wedding to shoot. She's like, well, I was going to do it myself, and that way it gives me someone of my own to shoot and learn. So I was like, okay, cool. So, did a wedding too. I mean, so yeah, 8 hours of my day on Saturday shooting weddings. And then yesterday I edited.
Thanks for doing it again.
I used to do it. I mean, like college. Probably not started doing it in college. Pay for it.
Yeah, get settled in. Josh and Lud, get the camera makers on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really good at that. You know,
I mean, we're good to go. We're rolling. I've already checked the live feed.
I'm enjoying it. I can do it.
How's it?
You're set. You're framed. Ready to go. Let's get this started.
Sweet. All right. Well, chapter 2, Nader Dabit. We're getting going about 1 minute early, so we'll let people roll into Facebook. Hopefully, the Facebook servers can handle the amount of traffic that episode 1 of the next big thing will bring forth. Nader Dabit, a Mantle member for really since the beginning. Thanks for joining us at the next big thing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nader, I'm going to let you explain you do a little bit of everything. He's a super badass coder. You've been doing coding. Tell me a little bit about how you got into coding, and also about kind of what you're doing right now as far as your Amazon thing and then your React Native training thing.
Okay, so I got into coding when I was 29, actually. I was working on a family project for the family business, trying to get an e-commerce site off the ground. We had gone through an entire year of hiring developers and having no luck with any of the projects that we had. So we were creating websites and e-commerce sites using third-party developers and outsourcing it. We just didn't have any luck. So I figured I'd give it a shot. So I started writing a website called EasySuits.com.
Easy.
Like the letter E, the letter Z suits. So after after building that for a few months, we launched it. It actually did really well. We ended up doing more volume on the website than we did in our actual store. Within around 9 months, we were exceeding $15,000 a day in sales, which was really, really good for us. And at that point, I was really burnt out though, and actually had an offer to sell the company to one of our suppliers. So I did that. And I realized that coding was something I was pretty good at and I wanted to pursue. So moved to California actually and got a job as a junior software developer, web developer. And from there I've just been learning on my own and kind of reading books and stuff like that to kind of learn and take tutorials online and stuff like that. So no formal education. So what I do right now, I'm a mobile, right now I guess my real title is kind of like a mobile cloud specialist, where we specialize in building mobile apps and leveraging cloud services for mobile app development. Before that, and I still kind of also am a specialist in React Native, which is a cross-platform app development framework that was built by Facebook to solve some of their problems internally. when you're building a mobile app, you have to target different operating systems. So iOS and Android are the main ones for Facebook, and they were facing compilation times of like 15 minutes to make minor changes. Also, the software engineers were very expensive for native developers. So they came up with this framework where you can basically write somewhat of a single code base and reuse the code across both platforms. So you can write JavaScript and compile to iOS and native, and you can reuse anywhere between 80 to 95% of your code. So I've been specializing in that for a couple of years, and over the past few years, it's actually gotten really popular, and it's kind of launched my career as like a software engineer and working with some big companies.
Yeah, cool. And so just to kind of explain a little bit of the setup over here, Nader probably eats at our City Club partner downstairs, Pablo, at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring you some guac, Nader, as a
It's my favorite.
as a welcome. And also, since it is the 4th of July, we're going to go ahead and say happy birthday to America. So this is a real special episode of The Next Big Thing where you get fireworks, guacamole, in addition to the beer. So, and plus the fireworks of all the coding talk that Nader's going to tell us about with React. I'm not sure how long this thing lasts, so it may go on, and I know we have several more, but I don't think we'll burn more than one. There we go. All right, happy birthday, America. Hopefully you'll have many more. Anyway, so I want to jump back a little bit and talk. So you went out to California, and obviously you didn't start in React Native. Was that something you picked up when you were working out there before you headed back? And I want to circle back around probably in the end when we get to this question, but about California, coming back to Mississippi because you are from here, from Jackson, right? And
Yep.
And so tell a little bit about how you ended up doing React and where that technology kind of is right now.
Yeah, so React is the framework that React Native is built upon. So React Native is the target of the React ecosystem. So React can be targeted to native devices, it can be targeted to augmented reality, to desktop apps, and Apple Watch, and all kinds of targets. So when I first started off, I kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do, actually. I just knew I wanted to write code. I didn't really have any strategy about what I wanted to learn. But in the first job that I had, actually, I got really lucky, and I ended up working with some really, really smart developers. And they introduced me to some of the more progressive parts of the community at the time, which were these really cool meetups where tech companies like Google and Yahoo at the time were sponsoring meetups where you go and you drink beer and you meet other developers that are writing a lot of open source and a lot of the bleeding edge technology. So I got involved in that community, and I kind of got a glimpse of what I thought would be the future of software development. And that was JavaScript in general, because JavaScript is a language that opens a lot of doors, and that's actually been the case, thankfully, like I guessed. Because with JavaScript now you can write desktop applications, you can write AR and VR applications and mobile apps, and literally pretty much anything you can think of. You can write server-side and web applications as well. So I kind of noticed that JavaScript was starting to become popular and had a lot of potential. So I pretty much just specialized in JavaScript. JavaScript has a huge ecosystem though. So there's frameworks like React and React Native, and also Angular and Ember. But there's also backend frameworks where you can write server-side code. And there's just a multitude of things like within the JavaScript ecosystem. So as I was progressing in my career, I learned React and React Native, and when React Native came out, mobile apps were really, really in demand. It was really hard to build mobile apps though, it was really expensive. So with React Native, it opened the door for developers like me to write pretty good mobile apps. So I figured that it was going to be popular, and that's kind of why I specialized in React Native.
Yeah,
and it's been popular.
yeah, and obviously, you and I have talked because Mantle is right on the edge of looking at building out 2 of its apps, and which route do you go? Do you go native? Do you go with React? And we've talked about the obvious benefit being you get 2 apps for the price of 1, basically. But then actually something that you shared on Twitter, and if you're out there, give us a share on Facebook. If you're out there watching, let people know that we're live right now. But also if you're on Twitter, you can check out Nader at Dabit3, DABIT3. And if you're interested in code at all, and everything that he's doing, you're very active on Twitter, and so and I caught an article that you wrote, or you retweeted or liked or something, that was Airbnb was one of the high-profile companies that was using React Native on their apps and such, and they just recently got off. What's that mean for the for that particular code base? What does that mean for if you're talking to Christopher Lomax, about to put money in from a company point of view into several apps, why would not looking at Airbnb, what does that mean?
So I'll take a step back for a second, and I'll kind of go into what the ecosystem looks like right now. So for the last year and a half, I've also been running a company called React Native Training that I started with a partner. And we started the company because we were getting a lot of people that were reaching out to us asking for training, and there wasn't a training company out there. With React Native, again, you save a lot of time but also money by building cross-platform. And I work for Amazon Web Services right now as a full-time employee, but I also run React Native Training on the side. So that means, like for this year, I've been focusing more on AWS. Last year, I was only doing consulting and training. Even though I'm working as a full-time employee with AWS, I still am seeing the lead pipeline that we're having. Last year, it was our first year. We had pretty good success, I would say. We weren't able to even fill the number of leads that we were getting. We were turning away business. This year, I've seen about a triple increase over last year. But the difference between this year and last year, so we're having just a ton of people coming in wanting training. This year, I'm seeing a lot more enterprise companies that are approaching us and wanting training or wanting more training. This year, we've booked trainings with Amazon, Microsoft, Salesforce, American Express, Visa, Warner Brothers, another half dozen Fortune 500 companies, but also a bunch of startups and medium-sized companies. In Amazon, at AWS, we're using React Native. So that being said, React Native may not be the best choice for every company in every app. It just depends on what you're building and what you're working with. I think the situation with Airbnb, we've actually had, I know a couple of engineers, the lead engineer that brought React Native into Airbnb. I'm friends with him. His name is Leland Richardson. He now is with Google. We've had discussions about React Native over the years, and there's a blog post that you mentioned that was kind of released that kind of talked about their decision. What it comes down to is, like, is it the right fit? And I believe that Airbnb adopted React Native at an early stage. It was still buggy, and it still had issues. And in fact, today, some of the issues that it had, that they left, or they ditched React Native for those issues, they're still there. What is going on, though, internally at Facebook, they've actually halted, or not completely halted, but they've somewhat halted actual updates to the existing React Native project unless they're really, really important, because they're rewriting the React Native framework and re-engineering it to address a lot of those issues. And we're going to see a new release in the coming months that kind of addresses those main issues. A lot of them had to do with the threading model of React Native, which affected performance and affected a few other things that you don't have to worry about with the native app. So I think that, and also I think what happened with Airbnb is they had a lot of good native engineers. And when you have a lot of really good native engineers, you run into two issues. One, maybe React Native might not even be the best choice if they're super efficient and everything is working fine and whatever. But also, you might have a cultural issue where if someone sees something like React Native as a threat to their livelihood, if they're a really good native developer, they might see something like this come along and look at it like, oh, this is gonna replace me, like, or these JavaScript developers are gonna come in and kind of replace my job. Like, it just, it depends, I guess, on the company and the situation. But there's like a 5-part blog series about why Airbnb switched away, and they go in depth on the benefits and also the negatives of using React Native in their situation.
But kind of taking that, and you look at them more as an outlier, given the companies that you named, they're obviously on it. So you're still bullish on React Native as a kind of premier language outside of, or the premier language outside of going native, full native?
Oh yeah, totally. I'm more confident now than I ever have been, actually, just based on actual real adoption numbers today in enterprise companies. Usually that's what drives the long-term adoption. Startups, they may adopt leading edge stuff that'll be gone in a year. What happens when enterprise companies, they adopt these things company-wide? It's a really bureaucratic process to adopt anything in a Fortune 500 company. What happens is they get these things and they actually finally get them approved and they're building them. They can't just ditch them like easily. And what happens is that a lot of developers that work for these companies, they become good at it. Other companies are looking for developers that are efficient building mobile apps. They just hire whoever is out there that can build stuff. And if there's a lot of React Native developers, you're going to see that continue. There's another framework that Google released recently called Flutter that's kind of a competitor to React Native. It's written in Dart programming language, whereas React Native is written in JavaScript. And it's promising as well. I would say in about a year or two, you're going to see Flutter and React Native head-to-head, and equally probably as popular.
So, are there any downsides to developing in React as far as Apple's concerned or Android is concerned? Are they going to kind of shut the door to any sort of language like that soon and pushing their own language, or are they happy having the extra apps on the App Store?
I think because Facebook is using React Native and Instagram is using React Native and all of these massive companies are using React Native, it would be really tough for them to stop accepting apps. They would have to shut down 90% of like HTTP traffic across the App Store, right, because it's too late, like it's already in there. If they, I don't think they like that people are using React Native because, and this is just my assumption. You can actually remotely update your JavaScript bundle from without going to the App Store, which kind of abstracts away some of their control. So I know they don't really like that's possible, but I think they also do recognize that the easier it is for people to build apps and have them in the App Store, the more money they're going to end up making because more apps are going to be built. So I think it's kind of like it's still an overall win for them. That's why they've allowed it. Right. And they actually explicitly say in their developer guidelines that you can ship JavaScript applications and remotely update them. Whereas if you're building a native app, it's not allowed to remotely update your native app with native code. In fact, they'll ban you from the App Store forever.
Okay. Cool. And so one thing I want to pull back on is you mentioned React Native training, and you're still live doing that, and it sounds like you've got big clients. Are you doing, is it any any kind of regular Joes like me getting in there, or are you having to work for one of the major Fortune 5s to do training with you? And then I think I also saw on Twitter that maybe y'all just recorded 100th episode of React Native Radio. Is that related to the training, or is that just a separate, another cool project you're doing?
It's just a separate project. I'm on 2 podcasts. One, I'm the host of React Native Radio. It's on devchat.tv. There's also JavaScript Jabber, which is on devchat.tv. That's more of a known podcast. We're kind of a sister podcast to them.
And so are those on kind of all the podcast stores?
They should be, yeah.
And it's React Native Radio and
also on React Roundup.
React Roundup, okay.
So React Roundup is just React, and React Native is React Native.
Yeah. Cool. Well, congrats on 100 episodes. We're almost there with number 1. Technically 2. So,
but I mean, as far as you did ask about the like regular Joes or whoever can do the training. We pretty much will train anybody who will pay us.
Right.
So like we were at the, I would say I wouldn't say like this is a low profile, but this is kind of like the most, like the smallest group of people that we've worked with. I think it was like the state of Arkansas, Game and Fisheries. They had like 3 developers that we went in and talked. So some of them were like brand new to React Native. And then of course the bigger companies would be like developers that are like Stanford graduates and stuff like that could blow me out of the water in pretty much any coding exercise. So like we've really had a large variance of people that we train.
Very cool. So we'll kind of start rolling into the standard questions and kind of work our way down from there. But so you're doing a lot of cool stuff. What's the big thing, the next big thing that you're working on personally?
Personally
or with either way, okay. Yeah, just whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, but the next kind of big thing.
So like what we've seen over the last 10 or so years is a move away from people managing their own infrastructures and moving into cloud computing. If you think about when electricity was first created 100 or 200 years ago, whenever became like household, or before that actually, what happened was people would actually have to build and generate their own electricity. If you had a company or whatever, you would have to have
like
a generator.
An exercise bike.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly, or whatever. Like gasoline. I have no idea how they did it, but what the electricity you needed, you had to create, and if you needed to scale your factory to be bigger, you'd have to generate more electricity. There was no grid. What ended up happening was they built power grids, and now you just flick a switch and you get a bill in the mail. You just pay for what you use. With cloud computing, it's a similar idea. People used to manage their own servers when they had a company. Say you ended up building a startup and you had like 20 employees and you had like 100 users, and maybe your app went viral because some celebrity used it and tweeted about it, and then you end up with 2 million users. What happens is you have to.
This is where Justin Bieber, if you're out there, just download the Mantle app. You tweet about it. Biebs, love you.
You end up having to buy like servers and you have to build infrastructure to manage those millions of users, or else you're just going to go down, and you probably actually would go down before you have the time to do that. And then a week or so later, you may have scaled up to like 10 million users. You started at 100, and then you scale down to maybe like 500,000 users. So then you have all this extra computing that you just paid for that you're not using. With cloud computing, it's a similar thing to electricity. You just flip a switch, you scale automatically whatever resources you use, you pay for. As your usage goes down, you don't pay for that. So that happened already. So we've already seen cloud computing catch fire. Everyone's using it now. Then we saw serverless computing, which was introduced a few years ago, and that's also kind of AWS was kind of the market leader there. And with serverless computing, you don't actually have to manage your own servers within the actual infrastructure. You can actually, just spin up a function even, and instead of having to worry about managing the scaling from within the cloud, the actual serverless function will just scale automatically for you. So if you end up getting a few million users, it'll just scale, and you only pay for what you use. So it's kind of like a continuance of what we saw with cloud computing. We see serverless computing. I think we're seeing the next step past serverless computing, and that's kind of the few things that we're working on at AWS Mobile. With managed services, we're now seeing databases that used to have to be built, like people used to have to build their own APIs over their database and actually manage their code and stuff like that. So for instance, if you have like an application and you need to build an API that manages users, you just have to actually go and write the code. And most of the time people still do this. You go and you write the code and you have an API endpoint, you hit it from your app and you get data or whatever comes back. We've created a few different services at AWS Mobile. One of them is called AWS AppSync, and we also have a framework called AWS Amplify that allows you to manage and work with these resources from the front end without having to write any of your own code. So to kind of go a little bit deeper into that, as a front-end developer, most front-end developers have a hard enough time keeping up with the technology changes as a front-end developer. So you have to learn React and React Native, but you also have to learn literally probably 100 other things to kind of, just to stay on top of what's going on and remain employable. If you want to be a back-end developer, you end up having your own ecosystem of things to learn. So it's almost impossible to become a top-tier full-stack developer. There are full-stack developers out there, but most of them, there are definitely some people out there that you could consider really, really good at both. But most of the time, if you're a full-stack developer, you're not that good at one or the other. We've created services at AWS, things like authentication service, analytics service, an API service, a push notification service, where you can literally just buy into the service and not actually have to write the code yourself. So as a front-end developer, you can move further up the stack without having to learn a bunch of new things, pretty much. So that was limited up until a few months ago when AppSync was released. Before, you still had to write your server-side code to build an API. Now we have like an API layer where you're able to have things like a user database managed for you, basically. So I think one of the big things that's going to happen over the next few years, there's not really a name for it yet. I'm calling it serverless plus. Some people are calling it backend for the front end. We're going to see really a lot of innovation, not just within AWS, in my opinion. I think you're going to see some of the other cloud providers get into this space and be very, very bullish in it. And I think we're on the cutting edge of what's going on
at AWS.
At AWS, yeah.
And so, like, obviously AWS, Amazon Web Services, known as kind of the big backend computer for most all apps. Now they're obviously like kind of in an arms race with every other original technology company, right? Google's got their own stuff, Oracle. Is AWS, I know you're obviously an employee there, and so you tilt that way. But do you still think that they hold the that definite edge in that space and the stuff that you're talking about?
So some of the things that we focus on at AWS are, I would say, I don't really know, or I'm not going to talk about some of the other providers, like what they. All I know is what we're focused on. We're always focused on kind of what our customers want, and our customers are developers. So I spend my time talking to developers, seeing what they want. Pretty much everyone else at AWS does as well, and then we build things to kind of suit customers' needs. We have customers like Netflix, Airbnb, the U.S. government. Almost you name any big company, they've used AWS. When people are working with cloud computing, what they're getting is they're getting the availability, or whatever you would call it, to experiment instead of having to worry about, again, managing your own servers and build and kind of set all that stuff up. It could take weeks. They can just have a one-off experiment, create a machine learning algorithm, test it out, scale it up to millions of users. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So what you're seeing is a lot of innovation because of AWS. People being able to experiment, create new things, and I think a lot of the reason that we've seen tech kind of boom over the last 10 years is because of cloud computing, and with AWS being like the first one there, kind of creating that space. It's
definitely brought prices down.
Leader.
Yeah. So I mean, in order to start an app 10, 15 years ago, was $1 million. Now to start a similar company, you can do so, $50,000, $100,000, or really just the knowledge and ability to do it. So that's
and you can scale you can scale your money with users. So for instance, if you have 10 users, you don't have to worry about paying like a bunch of money. If you end up getting 1 million users, you have users, so you probably have money coming in, so you can actually worry about payment when you actually have users.
And so kind of that the next kind of question may have been answered a little bit by your first answer, but it's what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing in your industry that you see coming? Is that what is you called
like
serverless plus
or backend for the front end? That's kind of what I see. The general serverless.
And you're working on that. So
yeah, I'm working on that. I think the general idea of serverless computing is going to really, really continue to grow over the next few years. And what we're going to see again is front-end developers being able to move further up the stack, build more sophisticated applications without having to learn how to be a back-end developer.
That's very cool. What's your big thing as far as, I mean, you run your own company with React Native training. You're on at least a team at AWS. What's your big thing in the terms of building this stuff, and whether it's the serverless plus plus, is it culture, is it idea, is it team, is it something else?
I think strategy and long-term thinking and futurism almost is kind of what my big thing is, because I think it encompasses all that stuff. If you have a good strategy, you're going to have a good team, you're going to have a good culture, you're going to be making the right moves, you're going to be talking to the right people. I think really my big thing is getting in front of something before it becomes big and making a footprint there. So once it becomes a big thing, you're already an expert, you're already very well known and established. You don't have to kind of start from the bottom, you're already kind of at the top. And I think with React Native, I luckily got out there and became known in that space. And I feel like we're kind of in a similar area with some of the stuff that we're working on in AWS, but I'm actually a lot more bullish on the stuff that we're working on. I really, really think this is going to be the future of really software engineering in general in about a couple of years.
So something that we have a question coming up that I'll ask you, and it's kind of, don't answer the question right this second, but like, what's the next big thing that everyone thinks is going to be the big thing that's not a big thing? And I answered that question in our kind of teaser last time of being cryptocurrency. I can't get behind it. I do think that blockchain has, obviously a lot of uses. How does blockchain really affect what you're doing at AWS? How does React Native, work with that? I mean, some people say blockchain is the next internet, right? So how does, what do you see? How do those things kind of mesh together?
So, do you want me to answer that question? Or
we'll get to the question in a second. Unless you think that is the big, the thing.
So, I mean, blockchain is like a philosophy, I guess you'd say, or a technology description or blueprint even. It's more of a philosophy though, because there isn't just a single way to do blockchain. It's more of like an idea. I think that what you need for a technology to take off is for mass adoption of developers that know how to use it. And I think the problem with blockchain right now, at least, is there aren't enough developers that understand it, that can write programs in it, and there's too much of a demand for those developers that do know how to do it within like big companies. So you're not seeing a lot of innovation in startups as much as you would if this was a technology that everyone was able to write. I've seen blockchain developers get paid $500,000 to join like Fortune 500 companies. So like, I don't think blockchain is going to affect a lot of things for at least a few years, if that. I think it's more of I think where blockchain makes sense is with things like voting like that. I think that might be, but again, that's more like government versus private. I mean, of course, private companies could adopt that technology to create some type of, but I guess my general point is, I don't think that blockchain is going to take off like right now. I think it's a good application is cryptocurrency though. I think we're seeing that cryptocurrency has had its ups and downs over the last few years, but it's going to be a thing, especially when you look at the places that are having really big issues with their valuation of their currency, like Venezuela and parts of Africa, where people that get paid $100 and then the next day their money is worth like half. If they were paid in a more stable currency that could be traded around the world, like Bitcoin or whatever like that, it would make a lot more sense. I think you're going to see governments picking up cryptocurrency as a form of currency in the next few years.
That's where I think it actually is. I think your more independent cryptos are going to like go by the wayside of your government currencies that run on the same security protocol. So. Cool. Well, so futurism is kind of your big thing for your company and just how you view growing things. What's your big idea? So this we'll bring this back. We talked about you going to California and then coming back here to Jackson. And I know you started the Jackson area web and app developer meetup here. Y'all have got how many people? Like
700-800.
Yeah, 700-800 people like that are in the meetup. Y'all are 20 to 50 people any given night that y'all do it. So that's been super successful for y'all. And you brought that model back from California. What else did you bring back from there to here? And what frustrates you about being here as far as being a little bit behind on the tech scene? And then what's your big idea for Jackson, whether it's in tech or anything else?
So I would say that there's a sense of urgency that you see in some of these other cities where there's tech happening that you don't really see here. I feel like the exponential, I don't really know the properties of technology that you see. Once you understand how all that stuff works, you have more of a sense of urgency, I guess you should say. And I see that sense of urgency. I saw that in LA, and it kind of piqued my interest, and I subscribe to that ideology, I guess you'd say. And what you don't really see here is maybe that understanding of kind of the benefits that it offers around here. I don't really know how that can change. I think there's a cultural issue here where people don't know that you can make easily $200,000 to $300,000 a year by spending 6 to 12 months learning something. They still look at it as kind of like an intangible thing, maybe. I don't really know the answer to that. I think it's going to be one of those things where there's going to be an aha moment by some popular politician or something here, or a leader, and it's going to kind of like grow in that way, because I've seen a lot of good things happening over the last few years, but I feel like it still hasn't caught on in the way that you see it have caught on in some other areas. I don't really know the answer to that. I feel like it's more of like an awareness thing, and maybe when people graduate from college and their friend is making like 6 times what they're making, and that type of thing, and they share that knowledge with each other. And I know it's not a lot of money. It's more about what makes you happy.
Yeah.
But I feel like money definitely plays a part of being happy sometimes. Especially like now, like everything's life is not cheap.
No, it's not. Especially when you add some kids, and you've got a couple kiddos like me, so they definitely make the price tag go up a little bit. So kind of awareness and bringing awareness. I know you're doing that through JWAD, and anywhere else you see that happening here.
Yeah, so there's a couple
any other
of
big
schools
ideas that you see elsewhere that we could implement?
No, I think just having a good tech culture in general encompasses things like what we have here with Mantle, co-working spaces where people get together and talk, and things like this podcast or this Facebook Live, and having coding academies, and having people that live here that kind of express all this stuff is definitely good for growth and good for things like that. But I think it would be cool to have maybe a good technical school like here, like in Georgia, in Atlanta they have Georgia Tech, and then you see that having a huge influence on the area. I think it would be cool if we had something like that here, but we don't. So,
yeah, I've been working on Millsaps. If you're listening, y'all need to get that coding program back up and running. So, kind of alluded to this a little bit, but what's the big thing that everyone else thinks is a big thing that won't be a big thing?
So my answer to that for sure, in tech at least, is how blockchain is viewed as kind of like this thing that's going to answer every question or solve every problem. And I think that theoretically,
like the internet did.
Yeah, maybe theoretically that's a true statement. Like if everyone was an expert blockchain developer, but again, to get adoption of all this stuff, you have to have actual developers that are interested, that know what they're doing, and that kind of have a viable thing they're working on long term for them to invest the time to learn it. And I see a lot of demand right now for blockchain developers, but I feel like there just isn't the number that's needed to kind of get a lot of stuff built in that space. It's still experimental in my opinion. I think you'll see more innovation going on in the next few years versus more actual real world solutions that are solved using blockchain.
So what is a blockchain? I mean, what does a blockchain internet look like? I mean, is it because we've got the World Wide Web, right? And it's like one World Wide Web. The internet is, kind of everyone's connected to everyone else. Every computer's on that one web. Is blockchain a whole slew of different internets?
That's what to me it sounds like. It's like a decentralized. Like I can have access to certain things that other people can't have access to, and I don't know. It's very. I've heard people talk about it, but to me, I don't understand it well enough to kind of speak to it, to be honest.
Yeah. Cool. So we'll kind of transition from big things to kind of the little things that, we all know have to happen to get through the day, to make big things grow. We have to do a lot of little things. What's the little thing that you do every day that makes a big impact on your day?
So I've really been writing a lot over the last few years, and it seems to have paid off in a lot of different ways. So for me, just writing something, whether it's a blog post or my book or a tweet or just making notes for a future blog post, writing is something that I've been doing. And also, I wouldn't say this is like a daily thing, but definitely a weekly or monthly thing is practicing speaking in front of people.
Because you're going to lots of different conferences all around the world talking about React, right?
Yeah, we get to talk, but we get to go a lot of places for sure. I was in Romania and then LA over the last couple of weeks. But I think the combination of speaking and writing, when you actually look at people that are really successful, you don't realize, but they're actually doing a lot of that. Like politicians and people that are just well known in the world. If you actually look at their day-to-day calendar, they're doing speaking events and they are writing a lot. And I feel like if you can start doing that in your career, if it helps. I don't really know. Also, when you write things and put them out there, people read them and they resonate a lot of times because they feel like they know you a little better and they value what you have to say.
Yeah. Do you have a routine for writing? Did you wake up at a certain time and do it, or and then do you have a favorite medium? Whether it's writing with a pen and paper. A lot of people say that do that, take your notes with that, so you remember it better, or is it typing it out?
For me, it's I schedule time on my calendar to do some writing every day. And my favorite medium is actually medium.com. It's just a blogging platform.
And are you Dabit3 there too?
Yeah, Dabit3, Medium, at GitHub, and on Twitter. So with Medium, it's almost like a social network for people that like to read and like to write as well, I guess. So with a traditional blog like WordPress, you might have a lot of people that read your blog, but they aren't just going to maybe go check your blog every day. With Medium and the Medium app, it's almost like Facebook, where people go look at their feed and they see different stuff that they're following. And then if you follow someone, you might get shown similar things. So it actually helps you grow your network big time. And I've been writing for a while. I never had any success really until I started writing on Medium. Maybe it's a coincidence.
And you also write for Hacker Noon as well?
Yeah, Hacker Noon and Free Code Care.
Cool.
But pretty much anybody actually can get on those if you just email.
Right. Well, it's still something.
Yeah.
So that was the little thing that you do. What's the little thing that you use every day that makes a big impact in your day?
So actually, I was going to also say Medium and Twitter. I know that's pretty generic. It's no secret. It's nothing special. Twitter helps me really engage with different people that I really respect, people that I follow, and then also people that follow me that have questions for me. It's helped me kind of grow an audience and also come out of being an introvert a little bit. And then Medium, again, it's been a really good way to grow a following and also to kind of get my ideas out there and become known in the community.
So you mentioned, you're obviously writing a lot for Medium and Twitter and all this stuff, and just for yourself. But you're on Medium a good bit, or you're reading a lot on Medium, and you mentioned that kind of in our pre-questions that your favorite book was of the past year that you read was Shoe Dog, which is on my list, one of my favorites. It's such a cool book if you haven't read it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your reading habits. Does the flip side of writing, is it reading, and are you reading a lot or just writing more? And then, tell me what about that book in particular that, really struck you.
So I read a lot of technical books, but also read a lot of nonfiction books and a little bit of fiction. If I'm doing technical reading, I actually read a book or like a Kindle. But when if I'm doing any non-technical reading, it's strictly audio. I haven't read a non-technical book in years, probably. So if it's something like Shoe Dog, or if it's anything that again doesn't involve code, I'll just have an Audible. I'll usually buy the book on Audible. So Audible has been really awesome because,
I agree.
For the last couple of years, I mean, how many books have you probably read that you probably wouldn't have read? I mean, you can read a few dozen books a year just in time that you normally wouldn't be doing anything.
Driving.
So I don't listen to music anymore. Like when I'm working out, I actually listen to books and stuff.
Yeah, my workout time is podcast, and if there's not a good podcast, then I'm listening to books on my Audible, and but then I read sometimes on the treadmill, which I jack up the font really big, and
nice.
I'm like running, and so I try to read a little bit about books, but mostly on my iPad. So what struck you about Shoe Dog, in particular? And Shoe Dog is about Phil Knight. It's actually by Phil Knight, and he was he's the founder of Nike, and he wrote kind of his own memoir about his starting that. What if one thing struck you about that book? What was that?
So I guess first of all, it was kind of not the type of book I normally read because I had negative views of Nike in general before I wrote that book, and I just felt like it's kind of one of those books that someone becomes successful and they just write a book about themselves and like whatever, But I just had like at least 10 people actually, literally about 10 people just I've heard recommend it or recommended it directly to me, and then I was like, okay, I'll read it, and it was actually. I don't know, I guess it resonated to me because it was like the story of starting something from nothing and actually going through a lot of pain and like suffering almost like before it actually worked. And it reminded me of the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, kind of a little bit, because it was like it just kind of tells you that nothing's going to be easy, I guess.
And you think it was easy, but nothing that is successful really came that easily.
Yeah. And also I got the impression, of course this is his book, that he seems to be like a really decent person, and then hearing that more information about the whole production process of Nike, it changed my perception of Nike a little bit, and I don't know, and it had a very, very strong ending. It was just a really good book in general.
Yeah, and so, something that two things I took from it were, and I know you're a fitness guy, is how much, it was him as well. I mean, he ran, 6 miles every single day, and really it's kind of crazy that running wasn't a thing before Nike. It was like, nobody ran to exercise. It was kind of crazy. But he ran kind of religiously, 5-6 miles every single day. I like to try my best to fit it in my day, run. That's where I do my thinking and kind of clear my head and can just sometimes not think about other things. But the other thing that I think is I related to a lot, and it's hard, is trying to work family balance. And what are, and it took a toll on his family. I know you've been successful in what you do. You've got a couple small kids. Do you have any sort of philosophy on how you manage that balance?
Yeah, it's always tough. Before I started working with AWS, I was working 6 days a week. Now I'm working 5 days a week. I just try to spend, as much time as possible being efficient while I'm at work. So that means I can get more stuff done and then leave and go do other things with my family. And I think a lot of that has to do with just your daily process and things like that. But I've read a lot of books about efficiency and a lot of books, autobiographies about other people. And I don't know, I guess you just kind of develop your own little way of dealing with that. But in general, I just try to get as much done possible in the shortest amount of time possible. That way I can actually leave and go home.
Yeah. Do you have any hard and fast rules about that stuff? I mean, I'm going to try and be home by this time, or like, is it, you know?
No, not really. I mean, if I end up having to work until 9 o'clock one day, that's fine. I'll just make up for it the next day by like not going in or something.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I have to get my work done, but I also value my family time. So it's kind of course, just a balance. But a lot of times, after everyone's gone to bed, maybe I'll pick up my computer and knock out some stuff as well.
Yeah. So we kind of touched on a couple of those things in that section, but what's the little thing that you watch or listen to that you love? I mean, Audible, obviously, you're getting some time. Anything other that you kind of watch or listen to? The podcast.
Yeah,
podcasts.
I like podcasts. I would say I really like watching Egghead.io. Egghead is a coding screencast company, and they've kind of like found a way to have a certain type of programming video that resonates with a lot of developers, including myself. It's almost like they just don't have anything that's unnecessary in the video. They get straight to the point. So if I'm eating lunch or something, if I have like 5 minutes free time, I'll open Egghead and I'll just watch a video. And I think I've learned a lot over the years watching those little videos, because you might not have time to sit down and watch a 3-hour video to learn something new, but everyone has like 5 minutes here and there. With Egghead, I've been able to just add small things to my skill set over the last couple of years.
Cool. And kind of last question, heading out the door. If you could leave behind one idea for others, what would that idea be?
So for me, I've always been a big proponent of sharing and teaching. I think when you share things and you kind of make yourself vulnerable to different criticisms, you first of all have to really think really hard about what you're about to write, because you don't want to say the wrong thing. And then when you do say the wrong thing, you become the target of criticism. People are going to correct you, and you kind of start being able to deal with that sort of criticism, because you're going to get a lot of that in life, and it's just a good way to receive it. Just some comment on YouTube or something like that. So writing and putting content out there, sharing, but also teaching. I think when you teach something, you have to again understand it on a certain level where you wouldn't have understood it. So I think a good process for learning something new is to learn a quick overview of it, try to implement it, and then go back and learn it a little more, and then try to teach it. I think if you do those things, and teaching it could be going in front of a bunch of people teaching it, or it could be writing an article about how to do it. I think you end up learning it to a level that maybe puts you, a little above everyone else, maybe, I guess you'd say. So it kind of helps you become a little, improve your excellence, I guess you'd say.
Awesome. Well, Nader, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Another big shout out to Joshua. Thanks producing episode 2 here. Hopefully he'll be back for all of them. Get over to the Powell Couple vlog. And then a call to acting if you're interested in acting or video production. I know he's on YouTube and Vimeo and Facebook and all those things. So go check him out. Nader, most everywhere, Dabit 3. So DABIT 3. Check him out. Check out React Native Coding if you're a company and looking to do some new development. Give them a call. They can get you 2 apps for the price of 1. And Janie, thanks for helping out today. Janie's on the Mantle team. Please, if you're out there, whether you're watching us live or on recording, we are going still, maybe, I don't know. If you're out there and we're still going and still recording, go ahead and please share this and say something nice or mean. But if you say something mean, at least other people will see it, and maybe they'll watch it because they want to see what you're saying something mean about. Let us know if you have any cool podcasts or books or anything that you're listening to out there as well, and keep following up with us. We've got I think hopefully we're working on something for next Monday with Rick McKnight. doing health. We'll see if that we'll let you know if that comes up. And then also the following Monday, we'll have Chip Pickering, former congressman from Mississippi, who's now lobbying for all of the big technology firms in California. We'll be talking about California, Washington, D.C., and Mississippi, and what we're doing in technology. So, Nader, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having
look forward to catching up to your 100 podcast. We're almost there. So, thank you. See you later.
So this died. So I think this died. I don't know if. Yeah, that's still been recording. So.